The COVID-19 crisis jettisoned healthcare workers, frontline and emergency responders into overdrive, using all precautions at work so they can care for their patients and protect themselves, working long hours under heightened stress. They go home exhausted, but also on guard to protect their loved ones from any exposure they may have had to the virus. For these dedicated people, it's a marathon of months. As Kathy Harrington reports now on a recent Mass of Thanksgiving offered in their honor.
This Vigil Mass of the Feast of St. Maximilian Kolbe looks like all others this summer, with the celebrants and faithful wearing masks and maintaining safe distances. The celebration was to thank those who worked so hard while we were at home and quarantined.
My brothers and sisters, we gather together this evening to give thanks to God for all of those who work in healthcare.
But in 2020, the importance of this tradition in the Catholic Church to ask God's blessings for healthcare workers is magnified.
No greater love hath thee than to lay down your life for your friend.
The faith community of St. Stanislaus Bishop and Martyr Basilica in Chicopee began planning this Mass for the heroes of the pandemic in the spring. Brother Michael Duffy, a nurse educator and adult nurse practitioner, said St. Camillus de Lillis came to mind. The 16th century Italian-born soldier turned gambler ended up working in a hospital and later became a priest.
After he was ordained and motivated by the work he had done at the hospital, he assembled a group of Catholic people, religious and lay, who wanted to come together and work with the suffering patients, and he called this motley crew Servants of the Sick.
Facing the bubonic plague, the Order of Ministers of the Infirmed lived their faith.
In addition to the traditional vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, his community went one more. They took a fourth vow, unfailing service to the sick, even at risk of their own lives.
Centuries later, Father Maximilian Kolbe said, "Indifference is the most deadly poison of our time." With their patients sometimes facing death alone, the pandemic has put the spotlight on healthcare workers around the world. They're putting their own lives at risk while providing care. Lifting up the heroes in prayer, Duffy called them by their occupation: doctors, physician assistants, medical practitioners, nurses, healthcare technicians, EMTs, paramedics, housekeeping staff, and dietary services.
As we each, in our own way, in our own station in life, lay down our lives in service to humanity in time of pandemic and not, because we are motivated, like Camillus and Max, by love. Remember the good news that we heard this evening and that brought us together. No greater love have we than to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters.
For all they have done and endured, Archbishop Mitchell Rosansky said it was important to give thanks to God and to recognize the contributions of these heroes.
Our healthcare workers have shown us that example over the past month, so we unite their sacrifice with that of St. Maximilian Kolbe in the way that he gave his life for others, showing all of us how to give our lives for others.
In May, Archbishop Rosansky visited Mercy Medical Center in Springfield to bless healthcare workers and first responders.
They spoke about how this has impacted their lives, and indeed, for those who are in the healthcare profession, just the day-to-day would bring some stresses and strains upon them, but to throw the COVID-19 virus on top of it, we can just imagine the stress and strain that they have all been under.
I started in January, and of course we had this pandemic started in March, and it totally threw our way through a loop. So where nursing was much more holistic, now it's become more practical and dealing with the moment issues.
Will Puckett is a newly graduated nurse working in a hospital rehab where there are restrictions on visitors.
It's hard for the patients, especially because they spend a good amount of time with us, a couple weeks, and not having visitors is hard.
We have everything, a mask, goggle, facial cover, and gown, and gloves, definitely.
Careful to stay protected while caring for patients, nursing student Joy Zhang works as a CNA at an extended care center. She will earn her nursing degree next spring.
I think I will continue studying to be a nurse practitioner in the future.
To all the healthcare workers, I want to express my thanks because I know that many times they're unrecognized because they're behind the scenes, but yet they're on the front lines. And we thank God for their witness and for what they do for all of us.
The Archbishop says we must also give thanks for the healing they have brought to many COVID patients. For Reel to Reel, I'm Kathy Harrington.
And special prayers were also offered for scientists who are working for a cure for the virus.